Well, you may have noticed that there is, of course, an election underway. It officially begins at midnight tonight when our guests will no longer be MPs, merely candidates. But in reality, the gloves have been off for weeks. Everyone, of course, will be looking at the polls to see what's going to happen. But one Nottingham professor has a unique view on that. He's an expert on gambling and on politics. And he's given us his guide to the runners and riders here in the East Midlands.
It's a world where first past the post is important too. Leighton Vaughan-Williams knows both well. He's an expert in combining polling results and betting patterns to pick political winners.
People don't put lots of money on a candidate if they don't think they're going to win. And the people who know the most bet the most. People who can process the information the best, they bet the most. If you follow that money, it will normally lead you to the victorious candidate.
So what are his tips for the election in the East Midlands? Nationally, the UKIP horse is coming up on the rails, but here they're just an outside bet.
UKIP have got one chance, basically, in East Midlands, and it's a good chance. That's in Boston and Skegness. In Boston and Skegness, it's basically toss a coin. Heads, it'll be Conservatives. Tails, it'll be UKIP. I don't know which way that coin's going to fall.
In the East Midlands, it's usually a two-horse race between Labour and the Conservatives. So who'll win this time?
You won't be seeing any Conservative gains in the East Midlands. That's very, very unlikely, according to all the information that we have and the betting on it. But we will expect to see Labour gain in seats like Sherwood, like Broxtowe, like Amber Valley, like Erewash. And there's other seats like High Peak, which Conservatives hold. They'll probably hold on. They'll probably just hold on in Loughborough, but it's going to be close.
But political pundits agree this is one of the tightest election races ever. It may yet go to a photo finish.
And of course, a lot could happen between now and polling day, and we'll be out on the road across the East Midlands during the election campaign and hearing from all the parties. And looking ahead now, we're joined by our political editor, John Hess, for his view. John, Leighton Vaughan-Williams there was predicting up to 5 wins for Labour. Do you agree with that?
Well, there's no doubt the battleground of the East Midlands will live up to its reputation. We've got 46 constituencies. The Conservatives took 12 constituencies at the last general election. There's going to be a degree of churn yet again. I mean, there'll be those watching, they'll say, well, the campaign started ages ago. I mean, leaflets like this have been dropping through doorsteps now for several weeks, and you can expect all the big guns to be in the East Midlands over the next 6 weeks or so.
We've seen quite a lot of them already, haven't we? What are the big factors here in the East Midlands, John, in your view? I
think it's going to be very much the economy to a certain extent. The East Midlands has been leading the charge in terms of the economic revival, and that's why the Prime Minister and why the Chancellor of the Exchequer has been here. But the contrast to that, Mari, of course, and we've reported it on this programme, the concern of the TUC in the Midlands, for example, that the wage rates of the East Midlands are lagging behind the rest of the country. And I think that's where, if you like, the fault line in this campaign is going to be.
So the East Midlands has a huge part to play in this general election.
I think that's absolutely right. I think the Midlands, as you say, is always a battleground, and I think that's good in a way because it gets the focus on the Midlands. I think it's interesting listening to the report. I'm not going to speculate on individual results, but I think the thing to factor in and what you'll be finding as you go around is all the different campaigns that are happening in the seats. You know, all the sitting MPs. There is the incumbency factor as well. As you say, lots of leaflets people have been putting out for a number of years, and so I actually think we're going to have lots of different individual by-elections.
What do you think, Gloria?
I think John was right that the economy is going to be a really big part of this election campaign. So there is finally a recovery, but actually it's just a line on a graph unless people are feeling it. Now, let me tell you a shocking fact about Ashfield, where I represent. So wages have not just gone backwards in real terms, they've gone backwards in actual terms. People are taking home less now in their wage packet per week than they did back in 2010. That's not an economic recovery.
Nikki, you said you didn't want to speculate, but we heard Leighton Vaughan-Williams there saying that your seat, Loughborough, is very, very, very close. His words. Well, there were 3 verys. And it is.
And I wonder if you knew that I was going to be sitting here when I was listening to that. Yes, of course, it is a marginal seat. It is a swing seat. You know, we will see what happens. I've been fighting it very hard. I've been the candidate or the member of Parliament there for a total of 11 years. And my other colleagues, actually, I disagree. I think people like Anna Soubry will do really well. I think we could pick up Nottingham South and Corby, where we've got fantastic campaigns.
So Leighton Vaughan-Williams is wrong, in your opinion? opinion?
Well, I think when you look at the numbers, that tells one story. It's very easy on a piece of paper, but actually I think the campaigns on the ground, that's what's going to be fascinating for 6 weeks.
But the gamblers and the political pundits are also predicting it's going to be rather a bad night for you here in the East Midlands.
Well, let's see. I mean, you know, in 6 weeks' time we will know what's happened. But actually, I think that the mood on the ground is that actually people do. I hear what Gloria says, but I think people do appreciate what has happened to the economy and the job security, and that's what I see in my constituency.
OK, well, Gloria, your seat was the most marginal here in the East Midlands, less than 200 votes between you and the Lib Dems. But of course, this week, Lib Dem candidate Jason Zadrozny has been dropped following a police investigation into alleged historical child abuse.
Yes, and the police must be allowed to get on with their investigation. Clearly very serious allegations.
OK. Well, John, what are people on the street saying to you about this election and the way they think it'll go?
I think what's interesting is there have been quite a few surveys done of voter attitudes. There was one done by the BBC, and in the East Midlands there were 3 big concerns, overarching concerns over most other areas, and they were the National Health Service, the economy and immigration. Now this is a region where we've seen getting on for 45,000 new immigrants coming to the East Midlands since 2011, and the immigration stats are interesting, I think, because they are noticeably higher than in any other English region, and in this region I think that could give a little bit of wriggle room for UKIP. They polled very well in the European elections, remember, they won that poll. They scored getting on for 26% in the Newark by-election last year, so UKIP will be a big factor here.
And that's a real danger, isn't it, Nikki, for you? This UKIP could actually damage your vote.
Well, I mean, there's all sorts of speculation. We also have a Green candidate standing for the first time in Loughborough, and I think he's going to give the Labour Party a bit of a run for his money. I think it's interesting about immigration because I think what we also have here, of course, is different parts of the East Midlands. Leicestershire, of course, is actually quite multicultural, and so I think that actually UKIP poses much less of a challenge there than perhaps in other parts as well. But you know, I think, as I say, there's going to be lots of different campaigns. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens. We're going all out for majority government.
Well, when we've been out and about, and even in Labour areas too, Gloria, people are telling us that they may take a punt on UKIP.
Immigration is an issue. Anyone that says that we shouldn't be talking about it,
so UKIP could damage you too,
is wrong. So I will just tell you what the Labour Party wants to do. So we've got to ban recruitment agencies who are only advertising abroad, and we've got to stop people flouting the minimum wage, because that's what people say to me on the doorstep. Thank goodness this is not about colour of skin or race, it's about economics. And actually the Labour Party came about to make sure people's wages are good and people's working conditions are good.
Well, of course,
so
you know what UKIP would say to that, you know, the only way to tackle this is to leave the EU.
People don't say that on the doorstep. Europe doesn't.
No, but that's what UKIP are saying.
No, I know, but I think they're wrong. They think everything would be fine if we withdraw from the EU. So I'm saying that the Labour Party is in touch with what people say, which they are concerned about wages and terms and conditions being reduced as a result.
I think they're also concerned about the uncontrolled immigration that we saw under the last government. I mean, actually, I remember the 2005 campaign when I was fighting Loughborough, where, of course, we were told by Tony Blair and Alistair Campbell, can't talk about immigration. As a result, that's why it's become, I think, much more of an issue of concern. We are now addressing it. We set out some very clear policies as a government. Well, non-EU migration absolutely has not, but EU is still an issue. That's why we have pledged have an in-out referendum.
Well, away from immigration now, you're obviously 2 very high-profile MPs who we're going to see an awful lot of on this election campaign. But what happens when you're not in your constituencies? Isn't there a danger because you're both defending marginals? You don't want to be away too long, do you?
I'm always in my constituency.
So are you saying you won't leave?
There might be a manifesto launch or something, but this is where I, to be honest, since 2010 though, I've spent more nights in Ashfield than I ever do in Westminster, and that will only increase. I don't know, maybe I'll have a couple of days away if there's a big manifesto launch.
Are you being told to stay put because it's a marginal?
No, it's just it's just where I want to be. I want to be in the area that I live in and represent.
Well, Loughborough is my home as well. Actually, I'm looking forward to 6 weeks at home with the family and being around and about. And yes, absolutely.
So you're not going to be on the national campaign trail then? We're just going to see you in the East Midlands. Is that what you're saying?
That is very much the plan.
Are you being told that you have to stay here?
No,
then?
it's because I'm a constituency member of Parliament, and my first job is as member of Parliament. I hope it'll be after May the 7th for the constituency of Loughborough. That is what I most enjoy doing.
OK, well, thank you very much, both of you.